it is clear. Yes. What about the others, guys? Like I need more response from you guys. Like if you are able to hear me properly, then we can start the session. So I need more response. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I need thumbs up, guys. You can send me thumbs up or any symbol you like, so that I can start my session. Yes, I am able to hear you. Yes, thumbs up. Yes, sir, I am able to hear you. Okay. Yes, Mansi, thank you. Yes, Arvind. Okay. Okay, Yuvraj. So you're able to you are audible, sir. Okay, thank you, guys. And it's an small request from you guys that if whenever you are sending me a message, kindly type your name or your email ID so that I'll be able to recognize who it is. Okay, I'll be able to recognize the names. Okay, that would be better. Yeah. Okay, guys. So we'll be starting our session. Okay, so I'll be starting my I'll be starting my session. So good morning, guys. So this is a session of industrial design aspects, and I am Sumante Satria, where I'll be the host today, where I'll be explaining you about about the design concepts. Okay, so yeah. So these are the contents, and then the agenda is like this is an 2 hours workshop. So where you are advised to just observe and make note wherever it is required. And this workshop will revise your basic knowledge of design and manufacturing. Okay, so for the instruction part, like the atomic engineering, so simple that even non-technical personnel can understand. This is our aim actually to make the mechanical engineering so simple that so simple that even a non-technical person can understand. And there is a famous saying by Albert Einstein that if you cannot explain it simple, you don't understand it well enough. So based on this concept, I want to make the session so simple that so you will be able to understand with the pictures as well as my explanation, and it will be in such a way that like will not be in the need of writing or noting down. So everything will be recorded directly in your mind. So our session will the session is defined in such a way. And still, if you find like making a note of something, yeah, you are free to do that. So before starting this, like let's check this out. See, we are starting with the industrial design. See, in front of you, like you are able to see two chairs. I think these are the two chairs. So I want your comments, guys. Like, let me know, like which of the two chairs are which you prefer. Like, out of these two chairs, which you prefer? Out of these two chairs, you prefer the first one or the second one? You prefer the first one or the second one? I am waiting for your response, guys. Okay, the second one. Okay, second one, second one. No, okay, chair number two. Second one is comfortable. Yes, second one, second one. Yeah, second one. Okay. So guys, yeah, like when you observe this, like the design, so the design and yeah, the comfortable point of view. So you people prefer the second chair. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Like now, just tell me which you prefer, the second one or the third one. Which you prefer now, the second one or the third one? Okay, so like yeah, yes, Shreyas, it is the third one as it is more comfortable than the second one. Yeah, chair number two. Okay, Chaitanya, you prefer the second chair. Okay, the third one. Okay, okay, the third one and second one itself. The okay, okay, personal preferences. Yeah, okay. See, let's come to this chair part. Like when we see this, when we compare the first one and the when we compare the first one and the second one. See, in the first one we don't have facilities in terms of the what do you call the handrest and the design wise, the look wise, it is not so good. Yeah. So the all these are important. Okay. So whenever we are designing, so all these will make importance, like since this normal second chair does not have those things. And when we come to the second one, that is the second and the third chair, like the second chair has a handrest and all those things, but the third don't have, but the stylish look and the comfortability will make the preferences. Again, the preferences may change. Yeah, the preferences can be second one or the third one. Yeah. So again, we will go to the next one. Like when we see this design, so kindly tell me which phone design you prefer. Which phone design you prefer, the first one or the second one? Which phone design you prefer, first one or the second one? First one or the second one? It's not the third one. Like we are talking about the first one or the second one. First one or the second one? Yes. Okay, the second one. Second one. See, let me tell you. Let me give you. Okay, second one. Yes, I need more response, guys. The people who are able to hear me, I need more responses. Kindly respond. Like you have to give your reviews. Like I want to make this session interactive, so I want your responses. The first one or the second one? Which mobile you prefer? Okay, guys. So, if I'll tell you, okay, before going to this, let's take, okay, we'll take the second one. Like, now tell me which phone you prefer. Now, can you tell me which phone you prefer? The second one or the third one? Second one or the third one? Which phone you prefer? The second one or the third one? Which phone you prefer? The second one or the third one? Okay, many prefer second one because it's comfortable. Less keypad. Okay, it is comfortable. Comfortableness in keypad. Okay, third one. Okay, second one, third one. Yes, Tanish, Shubham. Okay, Shreyas, third one, and it is attractive compared to both second one. Okay, so Ajit, yes, you prefer third one. Nishant, you prefer second one. Okay, so first, then the second one is suitable, and if you are using it for the okay informal purpose, then or casual one, okay, okay. The person who have sent this like regarding the purpose, formal purpose, kindly next time kindly publish your name as well. Okay, I want to see your name as well. Okay. Oh, okay, guys. So in this like if we compare if we compare now, so with the if we compare with the first one and the second one, see, we always prefer the appearance, but the fact is the second one is the latest, first one is the latest one, and the second one is the old one. The first one was the latest. Actually, I'm then we got the second one. So in that case, see, the appearance makes an important thing. So we all prefer the appearance one. So we did not take check about the technology or anything. So we prefer the second one because of the design, the appealing design. So even though it was old, the appealing design was good. So we prefer the second one. The same way, like people started referring the second one as a third one. So people, like you can say, some prefer third one, some prefer second one because the second one is again due to its appealing design. The third one is modernized, but still some people feel it. So what I want to tell you by this is that the design what you are making, so in that design you should also add appearance part as well. So if the appearance is good, the product will sell. So the major task, most major task is to make the make the model or your product appearance wise good, even though it is functioning very well, but more than the functioning, the appearance plays an important task. Okay, so so now we'll be defining industrial design. When companies are competing at equal price and functionality, design is the only differential that matters. Okay, so when we are competing with the price, if there are equal price and equal functionality, for example, like if you are planning to buy a phone and you are comparing between two phones, and these two phones have the same specifications and same price, almost matching price, then you go for the design part, the looks part, how the UAI is there, how the OS or the Android working is there. In that way, you will compare. So it will go to the design part. So how appearance wise, how it good looks, all this makes important one. So design is the only differential that matters. So, what is design engineering? Engineering design or industrial design? It is a synthesis of technology and human needs into manufacturable product. So, what we are doing, we are taking a technology and human needs. So, we are not only concentrating on technology, we are also concentrating on human needs. So, this is also an important one. So, when we in the further, like when we are designing something, we have to take care that like what is the human need, in the sense what is the need required, and then we are combining or integrating it with the technology and manufacturing the parts. Okay, so in the industrial design, so we have the business point of view. So in the business point of view, make our product. So we have to make your product appealing to the customer. So this is the first point. So if at all, like suppose you go to a mall. Okay, so you go to some mall and you start observing. See, some most attractive parts, attractive things are the shampoo bottles. So you would have seen there are different shapes of the shampoo bottles. So if at all you try to see that product and if you pick it up, okay, if you pick it up, there are chances that 60 to 70% that you will buy that product even though you need it or not. So because the appearance is good, so you need it or not, so you will obviously buy that. So this is the impact of design. So this is the impact how the design makes on the customer point of view. So make a product appealing to the customer. This is very important. So your design point should consider this. Then customize products in order to target different customers. Okay, so how you have to make sure that, so the design part, like we have to have different catalogs of products, like different price variations, so starting from the minimum to the maximum, so that the customer can take, like like you can target on different category of customers. And then we have to like develop the brand. Okay, so then the final is like we have to build the brand. So design point of view, like when you're talking about the business, like these are the points which you have to take care. Okay, so then the industrial design is broadly classified into ergonomics and aesthetics. So this is the two important things industrial design. Okay, so observing and as well as learning about this slowly. So we'll go with the first one. And guys, like at any point of time you are finding difficulty in hearing my voice or anything, like let me know so that I will make sure that you are able to hear me as well as see my presentation. Okay, so this is the ergonomics part. So if you see this, like there is a person here who is pulling the block. Okay, so he's pulling the block. So this is one way of bringing the product object. Can you tell me some mechanical ways? Can you suggest me a mechanical way in which he can do the same work easily? He can do the same work easily. Can you suggest me some mechanical way so that he can do the same work easily with less efforts? Can you suggest me some ways, guys? So the same block has to be pulled. So I want some answers from you. Okay, add wheels. Yes. You are okay using conveyor belt. Okay, using a lever. See, okay, we need to pull it, Yuvraj. We are trying to pull it. Pull it. And Nishant, see in that particular place, see, this is a place where are you do you find that conveyor can be used? Wheels, okay, it is heavy. So do you feel wheels is a good one? Adding wheels, replacing pulling friction with roller friction. Yes, Pallavi, I agree with you. Yeah, and then using a tractor. Okay, okay, using wheels, using lever. Okay, first one because okay. Sumit Kumar, like we have moved on with the next question. Like kindly be updated with the course, okay? And then you can use JCB or tractor, something like that. Okay, fine. Trolley, okay. By using wheels with help of the wooden roller, yes, Rishabh, I agree with you. Using platform for wheel or using conveyors, okay. Using platform, okay. I need more responses, guys. Like I'm waiting for your responses. Okay. Fine. So you can see here. So the best way of making my work easier is using the logs instead of wheel will be a difficult one for me, but using the logs will be an easy task. Okay, in any situation. So what is ergonomics? So it's ergonomics is nothing but making our work easy. So what we have to do? So designing in such a way that our work is made easier. That's it. So the science of fitting workplace condition and job demands to the capabilities of workers. Okay, the science of fitting workplace conditions and job demands to the capability of the workers. So what is happening here? So we are fitting the places, so we are making sure making some arrangements in the design. So basically ergonomics is a design point of view. So design in such a way that making our work, so design will make our work easier. So the goal is to find a best fit between the worker and the job condition. So the ergonomics will help to do the work easily in any work condition, provided that we give a provision in the design, so that the design, and once the design is manufactured, the operator or the worker will find it easy for the operation, find it easy for the operation of that particular device, and in that way it will make the work also easier. So this is the main thing for the ergonomics. If the worker is able to understand that machine and use it properly, and it is handy for him to move it, then obviously the work will be done properly. So this is the main importance of this. Then there are some drawbacks as well for the ergonomics. So in the like what are the not drawbacks? I'm not talking about the drawbacks. It's something like the disorders which are happening and how this ergonomics will overcome that. So for example, like we have cumulative trauma disorder. So it is a health disorder arising from repeated biomechanical stresses on the hand, wrist, elbow, shoulder, neck, back. For example, you would have seen many people who sit in front of the computer. They find these type of, like, they have to sit continuously for 8 hours, and they find these problems. Also, they have musculoskeletal disorder. So the soft tissue of the body, like the neck, back, shoulder, elbow, hand, wrist, finger, these include nerves, tendons, cartilage, ligament, and muscles. So these are all affected. So to avoid this, see what we have. So this is a normal condition. So normal sitting condition. So what happens here is, so you can see that there is a small gap here. See the red circled one. So the red circled one, which you are able to here see, this is a small, there is a gap, and this is not the proper sitting position as well. And the design is also not good. It is not comfortable. So you can see all these disorders will happen. So to avoid that, so we have a new design. So you can see the design of the rest is in such a way that it takes the shape of our back. Okay, it will take the shape of our back, and it will give good support. So that is very important. And then this is okay, comfortable. And then the most comfortable, they have designed in such a way that even though you are in a standing position, the sitting position, and it is making you comfortable for sitting or standing for a very long time. So this is the evolution. So this is how the ergonomics has made the has made the situation good. So not only in this, like you have seen this bed. So this is an old type of bed, old bed where people is to sleep. But this is a new one where it will be easy for him to getting up as well as lying down. And also, like, you can see the mouse one. So this, if you are holding the mouse and the pen, so it was a difficult, like it was having pain on the finger. But here the mouse is modified in such a way that, as well as the pen is modified in such a way that the efforts are reduced, like you can make it effortless. So this is how the ergonomics plays an important role here. So this was a small introduction about the ergonomics. So where the design changes will make the human work easier and reduces his stress as well as his efforts. Now we will go on to the next topic, which is called as aesthetics. So in the aesthetics, we'll be discussing about about the more design appearance point of view. So here we were not about the appearance. See, the ergonomics is making the work easier. So making your designing in such a way that the operator who uses the design, the person or the client or the customer who uses your design should use it effortlessly. So here we did not think about the appearance. Now we'll be discussing about the appearance. So before going to this, like there are three products here. You can see these products. I want you guys to just tell me the name of the first, second, and the third product. I want the name of the first, second, and the third product. I want the names of the first, second, and the third product. You can guess the names. Yes, Vinay, Vinay BB, you are correct. Yeah, you are correct. Vinay, you are perfect. Okay, Syed, yeah. Pallavi Singh, kindly check. Kindly check. Yuvraj, no. I guess it's a room freshener. Yeah, first one. Yes, you are try. You are right, Shreyas. No, Yuvraj. The second one, no. Vinay, sort of. No, 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 no. I can. Vinay, kindly check once. Dikendra, kindly check. Room freshener, camera, speaker. Okay. Okay, guys. I think some of you have guessed properly. Yeah. Okay. So some of your answers were correct. Now I'll be giving you the right answer. Like you can just check this out. See the first one. The first one is the Airwick room freshener. Yes, some of them got it right. So the first one was right. And if you see the second one it's a speaker. The second one is the speaker. And the third one, to your surprise, it is nothing but a juice maker. Okay, so it is a juice maker. Okay, okay. Okay, so we'll go to the next one where see aesthetics is a branch of philosophy that deals with the nature of beauty and taste as well as the philosophy of art. So it examines objective scenario, emotional values, or something called as judgments of statement and taste. So here the aesthetic is a branch of philosophy. Okay, what is happening here? We are mostly dealing with the beauty and the taste. Okay, so aesthetics is deals with the nature of beauty. So here we are mostly focusing on the appearance, the outer appearance, and so we'll be focusing on the outer appearance. So that's also plays an important role. Okay. So then there are two traditional views. One is first find beauty to be objective, that is inherent in the entity itself. Okay, and the second one is the beauty is subjective in that it depends on the attitude of the observer. So what happens here is, see, first one is like beauty already there. The appearance wise, it is very good, and the entity itself inherents the property. But the second one is you decide the appearance in such a way that depending upon the observer, who is your observer? So what is his requirement? How he finds the object to be, how his tastes and beauty are. So depending upon his taste, the designing will be done. So then the beauty will be subjective. Then these are the examples of aesthetic products where from the normal computer, so the computer to the laptop, like the appearance plays a very important role. Okay, these are the products which are modified, like you can find many products in such a way that we will not be knowing its function, but the appearance wise it's very catchy and we prefer it buying. Yeah, we prefer it taking even though we don't know what is its functions are. So attractive the product is, so we find okay, let's try what is that. So this type of questions comes in your mind. So when you're into the design parts, so I find people to like think about it and design in such a way that you should add all these parameters in that. Okay, so then we'll go to the next one where we'll be discussing about how our once we are clear with the industrial design. So once that industrial design is very clear, so about the ergonomics and aesthetics, so we'll go to the another important topic where the basic designing plays an important role. Okay, so this will before going to that, so kindly send me thumbs up, guys. Kindly send me thumbs up so that I can start the next session. Like I want to know like how you felt about you have understood. I'm thinking that you have understood something about the economics and aesthetics. So I try to explain you in a very simple and understanding way. So if you are good at it, then we'll go to the next one, next topic. Oh, so kindly start sending me thumbs up, guys. I'm expecting more thumbs up from you guys. Okay, you can text me yes, no, something so that if the thumbs up is not there, like you can text me yes or no so that I can go to the next session, next part of the session, I mean. Yeah, yes, Nishant, it is mostly related to that. See, guys, now you store your questions, like have your hold your questions. Once this session completed, I will take the session. I will take the questions from you. Okay, so let's proceed to our next one. So guys, I think you people are able to see this. So there are three photo pictures which is in front of you. I want you guys to tell me what are this. I want you guys to tell me what are this. You are able to see three pictures. Like, kindly tell me what are these? Yes, guys. Yeah, you are right. Yes, Arvind. Arvind, you are right. Pallavi, you are right. Yuvraj, Yuvraj, you are right. Tanish, yes. Chaitanya, yes. Yes, true. So this is nothing but this is not like these you can recognize. See, and now we'll go to the next slide. So understand. Now you are able to see the symbols. Kindly tell me, guys, which is easier to understand, the symbols or the words? Symbols or the words? Which is easier to understand, symbols or the words? Which is easier to understand, symbols or the words? Yeah. So you are able to see the symbols, right? So I which you feel the best? Yeah. So yes, I got your responses. Like, yeah, good. Like, I need more responses. Yes, guys, you are right. So we'll be focusing on the symbols, right? Yes, the symbol plays an important because reading a signal symbol will take a lot of time, but which will take time for at least 10 seconds for us to recognize and think. But when we see the symbol, it will directly come into our mind what is the which is the rule we have to follow, and what are the rule which is represented on the board. So which is very easy to recognize. So in that way, that's why here we the same way. So we are talking about the GDNT. So GDNT, in the GDNT, that's why we use symbols. So to make you understand how GDNT works. So what is GDNT? It is nothing but geometric, dimensioning, and tolerancing. So it is a system of symbols, rules, and definitions used to define the geometry of mechanical parts. Okay, so it improves the communication. So you want to communicate with anyone, like in terms of like you are a designer and you want to communicate with your operator, then the best mode of communication is a GD&T. So where with the symbols you can educate him, so what all symbols has to be used and how it has to be done. Then it provides better product design. When you give a proper dimensioning and tolerancing, the design will be very good, and it increases the product tolerance. Okay, so now we'll study about GD&T by understanding up by reading a story. Okay, I'll be narrating a story. So on this, like based on this story, so we'll be understanding how this GD&T works. Okay, so let's start the story. So guys, I want your thumbs up. Like if you want to see the story. Okay, if you want to hear a story from me about GD&T, kindly send me thumbs up. Kindly send me thumbs up or S or something like that, so that I can start the session. I can start the story. Kindly send me S or anything so that I can start the start the story. Yes. Okay, guys. So I'll be starting with the story. Okay. So the story goes in this way. Okay. So we have two persons. So one is Mr. Operator and Mr. Designer. Okay. So now, so the designer, what does the designer do is he has given this drawing to the operator. He's telling that there are 5 shafts and 5 holes. So each shaft has to get assembled with the holes. Okay, so this is the condition. So each shaft has to get assembled with the hole, and he has to make 5 shafts and 5 holes, and the dimensions are given. So this is the data which will be given to the operator by the designer. Now the operator takes this design and starts the production. Once the production is done, the designer finds that so all the 5 parts are not matching. All the 5 parts are not matching. Now the problem is like now the designer is in a big trouble. So what is the problem here? So why variation in dimension? So if you see here, we can see that, see what is happening. The size of the shaft is more and the size of the hole is less everywhere. Size of the shaft is more, size of the hole is less. Size of the shaft is more, size of the hole is less. In that way, what happens? So the assembly is not possible. It's not getting assembled. Now this is a big problem for the designer. Now what happens? He'll ask the operator. Now operator tells him that, see, you have given me like I'll not be able to manufacture the properly because there are some limitations. Because for the shaft I can make plus or minus 0.25 mm, and for hole I can make plus or minus 0.2 mm. So these are the limitations. Okay, this is the limitations which I can do. So now this is the first lesson where the designer learns that, okay, so he can't design everything. Okay, he can't design on his own, or he can't give the dimension on his own. He has to check the capabilities of the operator as well as the machine. Okay, so the operator says it. Okay, you have not asked me, I will not tell you. So now the designer, now the designer thinks about it and he gets a plan. Okay, so he thinks about it and he got a plan. So what he do is he calls for the operator and he tells that, see, what you have to do is, whenever the shaft, if you are producing a shaft, since your capability is plus or minus 0.25, you always make the shaft as undersize and always make the hole as oversize. So this is the condition. This is what he explains the operator. You make the shaft always undersize, in the sense lesser size, and make the shaft make the hole always oversize, in the sense more size. So in that way, what he feels is that since the shaft will be always lesser and the hole will be always larger, so the assembly will be possible. So this is called as this is nothing but the tolerances, like which he has given. So he now gives the tolerance. Earlier he had not mentioned the tolerance. Now he gives a tolerance. Now the operator takes it and then starts with the production part. Again the variation in the dimension takes place. Now again designer goes mad and he calls the operator. Now I have given you the dimension. I told you to make the shaft lesser and always the whole size bigger. Now now assembly should be possible. What is the problem? Now designer tells the operator to measure. So what does he do is he'll measure it. So he measures that the size here, if you observe, it is 21.95, and the whole size is large and the shaft size is less. Now the assembly should happen. But why the assembly is not happening? Then again he checks it. Now he observes that, see, only on the one side it is 21.95, the other side it is 22.2. So that's why the assembly is not happening. Now he asks the operator, what is the problem? Why you have done that? So then the operator explains that when you are giving the dimension, you had mentioned about only this part. So only this part is considered. So that's why I maintained only from here to here. I did not care about the other. So it depends, no, right? Whatever dimension is given by the operator follows it. So now majorly the designer is in trouble. Now he needs to brainstorming. He goes to brainstorming. So he comes up with 3 questions. Should I write it on the drawing? Okay, the first question is, should I writing it on drawing? If he starts writing on the drawing, then what happens is instead of sketches, he files more writing and it will be confusing. So you can't use that. So wrong. Then should I tell operator verbally? Now, if you are telling the operator verbally to do this, then again it will be a problem because what is the problem here is every time the operator shift changes and communication problem may take place, like language problem. He may understand something what he is trying to explain, so verbally it will be not possible. Then should I design some common set of symbol? Yeah, the symbols, like he got this idea from the traffic symbols, something like that. So now he came to like symbols are very understanding because it can be understood by any uneducated people also. So in that way it will be very simple to explain, simple to explain. So then should I devise some common sets of symbols? Yes. So now he comes up with a design. He calls the design symbol. He calls the operator, and he tells him that, see, I am following a symbol called as cylindricity. So this is the cylindricity, and this is a symbol of cylindricity. And this, if cylindricity, then the tolerance of 0.15 should be maintained throughout this, not all one point, it should be followed throughout. With this symbol, he the operator also understood whenever he finds the symbol, and he thought he explained him properly. So in this way, the evolution of the GD&T symbols came in. Okay, so guys, like I think you people have understood something about this. Like if this story was interesting, kindly send me thumbs up or anything, like any symbol or anything, so that if you find it interesting, you understood the story, if it was good, send me thumbs up. So if you're if the story was interesting, like tell me. Yeah, yes, Tanish will share more stories. Yes. Okay, guys. So this was a small story of making you understand how GD&T works. Okay. So now you can observe this drawing. Okay, this is without GD&T. In the sense, they have given only the dimensions. Only the dimensions are given. Only the dimensions and the angles are given. What is the problem? Like it is the second one. The manufactured part is the second one. It is according to the design itself. The problem is it is not straight here, straightness is not there. So the perpendicularity, parallelity, this side parallelity, the circle is not in the proper position. Even though it is round, it is also not round. It's not round. So it's not in the proper position. Even though it is following the dimension, the appearance, like look wise, it is not proper. Look wise it is not proper. So these are the problems which you find. But once we use this type of these GD&T symbols and start with it, so you can see that the symbols are like the models are your models which you are getting is good. Okay, so now we'll go to the next one where we are discussing about the symbols. Here there are number of symbols, like we'll go in individually. So this is an attempt. So GD&T, what we are doing to do, what we are trying to do is, so GD&T, I am comparing GD&T with normal day-to-day usage different things, so that to make or correlate GD&T and understand it easily. So for example, in the form type, we have straightness. So you can see that a person is walking straight on the straight. This is called as straightness. Flatness, the vessel and the vessel. So if the base is flat, then only you will be able to place it properly. Then circularity is the giant wheel part. Cylindricity is inserting a pipe inside a pipe. Then we have a profile type. Okay, so a car on the hump, and then we have orientation type where we are talking about the parallelism, where the chair is parallel to the ground, and then we have perpendicularity, the fan wings is perpendicular to the roof, and angularity, the tap to the water flow. Then we have position, that is a PUBG target, like this is very known to you. Then concentricity, the Rangoli type here. And then we have symmetricity, like butterfly body. And then we have run out, like with reference to one datum, we have taken the run out. Okay, so this is related to the tolerance, limits, and fits. So in the tolerance part, it is the allowance which we are giving for which we are providing, so that we don't need to manufacture, not to break our mind and manufacture in exact size. Exact size manufacturing is not possible. So we give some allowance or the tolerance. Limits, like there are limit, the maximum and the minimum limit. And then comes the fit. There are three types of fits. So most things you will be known to this. Like there are three types of fits. That is the interference fit, the transition fit, and the clearance fit. Then we have material conditions. So this is material condition and maximum material condition and minimum material conditions. Then the last one about the GD&T which we will be discussing is we are talking about the frame. So what does this frame tells you? See, in the frame part, see this is very important. So in the frame, if you observe properly, so this tells you that the first one is of the dimension part. The second one is of the geometrical symbol which we are preferring, and the third one is the diameter if required. And then we have tolerance zone, and then we have material condition modifier, then primary datum, secondary datum, and the tertiary datum. So this is how the frame works. This is setup of the frame. So you can make a note of this frame or take a screenshot of this, so which will be useful for you guys. Now, next we will be jumping to the next important topic, that is called as Jigsaw fixtures. So Jigsaw fixtures are like supporting devices, so which will help us to do our mass production easy. So jigs helps in drilling hole mostly, and fixture helps in milling, not drilling, milling and turning. So what is Jigsaw fixtures? Okay, so this is mostly for the mass production part. So what is a jig? So jig is a work holding device. So what does a jig do is it will hold the device, support, and locate the workpiece. Okay, so this is what the jigs do. Okay, and what about the fixture? Just a minute, guys. Okay, so let's continue this. Fixture. So it is a work holding device that holds, supports, and locates. See, the difference between jigs and fixture is jig will hold the tool, support the tool, and guide the tool. But here in the fixture, it will hold the tool, supports the tool, but it will not guide the cutting tool. So guiding the cutting tool is not there. Okay, so fine. So we'll go to the difference, like locates and holds the workpiece, guides the cutting tool. Here only holding and locating is there in fixture. Then the elements are like work locating elements, tool guiding elements, work clamping elements. And here we have tool settings clamp. And here the jigs are light and the fixtures are heavier. So application is like drilling, mostly for the drilling operations. Here mostly for the milling, other than drilling, all the other operations. So special features like we use drill bushers, and here they are using feeler gauges. So what are the users, like application point of view? It will help to reduce the cost of production. So anybody, if the jigsaw fixtures are used, any labor, any uneducated, unskilled labor can also do the manufacturing work, because we would have given him like a template. Like template will be given to him. Jigsaw fixtures, you can tell it, call it as a template. So he will just follow the template. That's it. So it will give high accuracy. Interchangeability is there. It saves the labor. Less skilled labor also welcome. Then what are the fundamental principles and fixture designs? So it is like we have locating point, foolproofing, reduction of ideal time, weight of the jigs and fixtures, jigs provided with feet, materials for the jigs and fixtures, and the clamping devices. So now we'll be like, I'll be ending this session with the some topics. Okay, so lastly, I just want you guys to just revise you up. Like we discussed about the design point of view, where we spoke about what is ergonomics, how the aesthetics plays an important role, and then comes the symbols where the GD&T are used, and then from using these GD&T, we also discuss about how the jigs and fixtures works, which will help us for the manufacturing point of view. Okay, so the jigsaw fixture designs are also good. So here I try to explain you in a very limited information, and also like in a very simple way, and I hope you have understood this information which I given by me. And if that is so, then you can tell me, you can ask me, you can send your questions so that I can start answering. Like you have 10 minutes time for this, so that I can answer all your questions. Kindly kindly send me your questions if you have any doubts or anything, so that I can answer you. If you don't have any doubts, then I will move further. Or if you have doubts, like we can discuss about that. Okay. See, there is yes, Chaitanya, like run out. The difference between the run out. Okay, you can observe here. Like run out. See, two types are there. See, what is a run out is, see, by when we are manufacturing something, we take references. Why take, you see, when we are when we are manufacturing this step turning, so the first one will be taken as a reference, and using this as a reference, and the second part is the second step. This part is manufactured. So what we do is, with reference to this, both the dimensions should match. Not dimension in the sense, the variations should match. So whatever variations or anything which is present here, the same thing should be there, so that the assembly will be easy. So this is what a runout means. The same thing we have cylindricity. Runout is dependent. It depends on the datum. It is not an independent. It is dependent on something. But when we have the same thing with the cylindricity, same thing with the cylindricity. So what happens is, it is not dependent. In the cylindricity, it is not dependent. This is the major difference here. Okay. Okay. So primary and secondary datum, it is for the reference, like to lock it, lock the lock it, or like we are taking references, so that with respect to the reference, the dimensions are like, for example, if you want to have perpendicularity, there should be two quantities. Or if you want to have parallelity, then again it should be have two sides. So only two sides, only you can't have one side parallel. So two sides, if you want to compare, like you have to have two sides. So in that way, we have primary, secondary, and tertiary. Oh, what is the difference between drawing and symbol? As symbol is also a part of drawing. See, drawing is to make your imagination, whatever you imagine about the product you are presenting on the paper. That is we call as drawing, and the symbol is to defining that drawing. Like once you have drawn it, like we need measurements, right? How it works, like what are the measurements involved, everything is important there. So in that case, we'll be using the symbols. So symbols plays an important role. I think I have answered you, Rishabh, as well as Chaitanya. Did acid only depend on the appearance? Okay. Okay, does acid only depends on the appearance? Yes, Arvind, the aesthetics only depends on the appearance. It is making the part appearance appealing to the customer, so that if the customer picks it up, like he has to buy it. It should be so attractive that he should start buying it even though he don't know its functionality. So that is how the product sells. You can see the China product, all this sells in that appearance itself. It looks like something strange, and the people start getting attracted to that. That is a major one. Okay, so any more question, guys? If you are okay with the question, like the people who have asked me the question, I have answered them. If that is fine for them, then kindly send me thumbs up or S or something so that I can proceed to the next. What is the very first and foremost thing while designing? The material selection and then the product appearance, or vice versa? See, the first thing which we will be designing is, first you have to go with the appearance. Aesthetics is the first one. Based on the aesthetics appearance, you decide the material, whether it should be a plastic or it should be a metal or anything. You decide upon that. And also like functionality also makes an important role. So first you design based on the functionality, and then you think about add some beauty and appearance into it, and then you can think about the material. So think about the material, so that that way you can you can think in that way. Okay, so one more thing which we have to consider with the product appearance is product appearance is very important. Okay, so whatever material you are choosing, so based on the appearance you can decide the material. But appearance is the only criteria through which the customer is getting it. If it is it depends. Like material selection also depends upon the product which you are doing. If you are doing a consumer product, then appearance plays an important role. But if you are manufacturing industrial products, then there the appearance does not play an important role. There the material plays an important role. Which material strength and its durability, cost, all this make appearance. So here, yeah, the differences are. What on what basis tolerance is decided? See, tolerances are decided based on how you are deciding the product, and how you based on on what basis tolerance is decided. Say the tolerances are decided based on based on the application, like application and then machining capabilities. So you can't give more tolerance or less tolerance, okay, on your own. You have to think about the how the what are the facilities are there and how the operator can do that. Then there is any effect on product quality in appearance? No. There should be no product effect on the product quality. See, what is the impact is, see, the quality should also be there, but the people, see, for example, Dikendra, if I tell you to choose a mobile, and if you are planning to take a mobile, and if you if you choose a mobile, in what basis you will choose? You will obviously see the appearance, right? You will not go for the quality. First you will see the appearance, and then you will think about the quality. So it is a human tendency that we'll first focus on the if it is a consumer product, it will be more focused on the appearance. And if it is an industry product, it will be on the quality and then durability. But for the compromise, for the appearance, you should not compromise the quality. That can't happen. But the most things will go with that. Okay, guys. So I think I have answered you most of your questions. Like let's go to the next. Like I'll go to the next one. Like so this is this is Sumant. So I am Sumant. I am an CAD designing coach. I have experience of for more than 5 years of training students as well as professionals in mechanical softwares. And also like I have associated with startups as well as government project. I'm also into government projects. So these are the projects which we do, and we can help you with that. Okay, so I'll be ending my session, and if you have further doubts or anything, like you can contact me after the session as well. Thank you guys. Like I'll be closing the session, and I also request you guys to be patient for five more minutes so that the next host will join the session. Okay, so thank you for being a wonderful audience, guys. So it was nice talking to you guys, and it was very good session for me. Okay, guys. Okay, so you'll be having a small hold in the session, and after 5 minutes the session will start. Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, I hope you are able to listen to my voice and also you are able to see the screens. So hello everyone, that's perfect. Chetna is able to see, Prakalp as well, Mukesh as well, Rishabh as well. Okay, so starting with the session. Hello everyone, my name is Anurag and I'm going to be your host for the second part of this session. Thank you for being patient during our transition time, so to say. Um, uh, I would like to also thank Sumant for such a wonderful session. Uh, the explanation was pretty good for me. So I thank him for that. So now continuing with the session. Um, till now we have you guys must have understood one thing, that the whole scenario of industrial design, the evolution of the design, like Sumant explained about the different designs in chairs, the need for GD&T, the need for ergonomics, the aesthetics, every single thing is based on one premise, so to say, and the premise is the problem. It is Yeah, and the premise is the problem. So, how do we identify a problem? Now, problem identification has been one of the most difficult tasks for an engineer. It has been in the past, it is now, and also in the future as well. One of the most difficult tasks is identification of the problem. Usually, people think that engineering is all about finding a solution, but for the sessions that we have been taking for the past 3 weeks, we have always focused on one point, that is identification of the problem. Why is it important? So first is the concept that engineering is all about re-engineering. When we talk about innovation, when we talk about invention, when we talk about research and development, every new product is developed on the base of an existing product. Like, you do not sit in your home and then think that, okay, I'm going to make this product and I will sell it. Because if you are going to sell a product, you need to identify the problem first. You are supposed to solve a problem with a product. Like when we were when we watched in the session taken by Sumant. uh, when we watched the session that was taken by Sumant, one thing that he discussed, that he spoke about, was uh, was the evolution of chair, and how the aesthetics and the ergonomic problems were identified and they were solved. So the problem identification is very important. Now, for a designer, how does he approach the problem is an important aspect. So the first thing is, design is an open argument. There is no such thing as a perfect design. There is no book that says that a chair should be made in this way. There is no book that says that a car is supposed to be manufactured in this way. So design is an open argument. You can have one perspective of a design, but I can also have another perspective of the same design of the same product. And that is what makes designing an interesting field. Now, because design is an open argument, there is always a scope for improvement. Okay. And another thing is, design is an integral part of a production system. Design, production, and manufacturing are not individual concepts. They all fall under the big umbrella of engineering. So design is an integral part of production, and design is the greatest influence towards the cost of the product. And when I'm talking about the cost of the product, I'm talking I'm also talking about the production cost of the product. because the better design you have, the lesser is going to be the cost of production of the manufacturing. Now here when we talk about designing in this part of the session, we are not talking only about the product design. We are talking about the product design, not the industrial design in this part of the session. Okay, so when I'm talking here about the design, it can be a software design, it can be design of an automobile product, it can be a design of a PCB or anything. So design is always an open argument. There is always scope for improvement. Design is an integral part of the production system, and design is the greatest influence towards the cost of the product. Now, how is quality integrated with design, and why is the integration of quality important? First, it reduces the product cost. Second, it reduces the lead time. What is the lead time? Lead time is the time between the conception of a product to its entry in the market. If the quality is integrated, if the process optimization is integrated, the lead time is automatically reduced. Then quality also helps us to identify the problem. People usually associate quality with something to make it good, but for you to make something good, you need to understand the problem. Again, like I'm talking a lot about problem, I'm being repetitive when I'm talking about problem, because problem identification, I'm again saying this, problem identification is one of the biggest challenges for the designers. So with the integration of quality, we are able to identify the problems, and also it helps us to shortlist the solutions. Okay, shortlisting of the solution is very, very important. Now, for the last 3 or 4 sessions that we have taken on different aspects of the industry, we have always focused on the 3 pillars of business. Every single business, every single product is built on these 3 pillars. The first pillar is cost. With the reduction of with the integration of quality, we are able to reduce the cost, reduce the lead time, and the third and the most important is flexibility. Because we are able to identify the problems, we are able to shortlist the solutions based on the identified problems. We are able to bring a flexibility towards the whole production system. We are able to bring a flexibility towards the whole environment. So with the integration of quality, we are able to solve the problem of the 3 pillars of business, that is cost, time, and flexibility. Towards one so talking about the quality integration and problem solving, we come to a technique which helps us to identify the problem, and this tool is called, this technique is called as DFMEA. Now, what is DFMEA stands for? It is design, failure, mode, effect, analysis. It is design, failure, mode, effect, analysis. What does it do? What is DFMEA? It identifies the potential failure. It does not identify the failure in the problem, in the situation. It is not identifying the problem. It helps you to identify the potential failure. What is the potential failure? It is the anticipation. It is the identification of a failure before it happens. Like when you are designing a product, you are supposed to have the understanding. You are supposed to have a visualization power of how the product would be manufactured. Based on that, you would be able to identify the points where this product is going to fail. If you are able to anticipate that, then you are identifying the potential failure points. And based on that, what you would be able to do is, you would be able to understand the effects and causes of this failure. Once you identify the effects and causes of the failure, using DFMEA, design, failure mode, and effect analysis, you would be able to quantify the severity, the detectability, and the occurrence of this failure. Now, why is this important? Because once you identify all the potential failures, you would be able to create a risk mitigation plan. You would be able to create an action plan so that you avoid the future failure to happen beforehand. Instead of designing some product and then testing it and waiting and then waiting for it to fail and then correct it, you are able to identify the potential failure from beforehand. You are able to create you are able to analyze the effects and the causes of the failure. You are able to quantify the severity. You are able to identify how many times you would be able to detect the failure, how many times that failure would be occurring, and create an action plan without actually making a product. So what you're doing is, before the product is created, you have already identified all the problems beforehand. So when you are having the actual product design, when you are having the final product design, it is already foolproof to enter inside the market. This is the biggest advantage by using this technique of design failure mode effect analysis, DFMEA. Now, if you observe, DFMEA is kind of a film critic before a movie. Like, if you observe, this is what it is. Like, usually how it happens is, before a movie releases, for example, let us take Shah Rukh Khan. Before Shah Rukh Khan's movie is released, people usually compare his movie to the previous movie, and then say that the previous 3 movies were bad or the previous 3 movies were good, so we are expecting the next movie to be good or to be bad, right? Like, for example, Shah Rukh Khan was horrible in one movie as a villain, then it would be automatically presumed that in the next movie he would be bad as a villain and he should not be doing this to be bad again. Nobody will be talking about what he should do to improve. What people usually talk is what he should not do to be bad again. So DFMA is kind of a film critic, like a film critic before a movie. This is all it is. So now, what are the main terminologies for DFME? The first is failure mode. What is a failure mode? Failure mode is how are you going to identify a failure? How are you going to, what is the symptom of the failure? It is not the problem. It is not what is the failure. It is how are you going to observe the failure, or how your customer is going to observe the failure. It is not the failure. Failure mode is not the failure. It is how the other person or how your team is going to identify the failure. The second is the failure effect. What is going to be the effect of the failure? The third is the failure cause. What would be the cause? What was the cause that led to this failure? Okay. Then the severity rating. Severity rating is it is usually a rating between 1 to 10. We would be discussing that on what basis is this scale decided. So it is a rating between 1 to 10, in which the severity or the impact of a failure is calculated. Okay. Then comes the occurrence rating. Again, it is a rating. It is also from a scale of 1 to 10, which identifies how frequently is this failure going to happen. And third comes the detection rate. Detection is how easily would you be able to detect the failure, or how difficult is it going to be to detect the failure. This is what failure, and this is what these 3 terminologies mean. Now, let us see how can we, how is this thing implemented? The failure mode, failure effect, and failure cause are used for the problem identification. These 3 are grouped in a way that we are able to identify the problem which needs to be solved for the launch of the product. This is what we are going to use for identification of the problem. And then the severity, occurrence, and detection would be used for identify a key process indicator, a term, a value which is called as RPN, which is risk priority number. What is risk priority number is, for example, you are identifying 10 problems. Again, as I told you, identification of the problem which you have to solve is the biggest issue, is the biggest complication of for an engineer. So what risk priority number is? Risk priority number helps you to shortlist which problem will have the biggest impact for a customer. Okay, it can be technically, it can be aesthetically, it can be with any other reason. Now, how do you understand which one of these one? It would be through severity rating, it would be through the occurrence rating, and it would be through the detection rating. Okay, so with the help of these three ratings, you would be creating a risk priority number, which will help us to understand which problem will be having the biggest impact. Now, having said that, we are not facing the problem till now. If today I am designing a product, I'm not identifying the problem which is happening for me today. I'm identifying the problem which may happen after 2 months or 3 months. Now, how am I doing that? I'm doing this on the basis of my previous experience with this product. As we spoke earlier, engineering is all about re-engineering. So before there was a product which was engineered, now you're going to create a new product. Okay, now you're going to make a new product. Now this new product is on the base of the previous product, right? Now this new product, how it's going to work is you need to identify the problems to solve from the previous product. How you are going to understand which problems to solve? It would be through DFMEA. Now, how is this DFMEA implemented? DFMEA implementation works in following steps. First is the design review. The most important thing is the review of the design. So first you review the design, then you get a system overview. What is a system overview? As I told, the power of visualization. You are supposed to visualize the product working in real life. For this, the understanding of manufacturing is very important. The understanding of production is very important. The understanding of customer relationship is very important. And this is one area where designers lack. I have worked in many companies, I have worked in many countries, and I have seen this problem that designers don't have any understanding about the manufacturing. And this, I'm not saying this, the people with whom I have worked, they have said this thing. And when I'm saying the people with whom I have worked, I'm talking about the owners of the companies, okay, the managers of the companies, the director of the companies. These people have said these things, that the designers have zero knowledge about how a product would be made. They only focus on designing a product, not about how to make that product. And without having the understanding of the manufacturing, you would never be a good designer. Now, it's important for you to visualize the production process. Then you would performing the DFMEA system to identify the failure modes. Identifying the failure modes. What is failure modes? How you are going to identify a problem. How you are going to identify the failure, not the failure. You are not identifying the failure. How you are going to identify the failure. For example, I'm having a water bottle in my hand. Okay, and if a water bottle is leaking, my identification of the problem, like how did I identify the problem? I identified the problem by watching that the water was leaking. Okay, so this is the failure mode. Failure mode is that the water was leaking from the bottle. Okay, but when you talk about the failure, what the failure is, there is not a proper sealing between the bottle and the bottle cap. Okay, now when you talk about failure mode, we are talking about watching the water leaking from the bottle. That is the failure mode. But the failure is improper sealing. So I hope you understood the difference between the failure and the failure mode. Failure mode is how you are identifying the failure. Okay. Now, once you identify the failure modes, you establish the failure effects. After the failure effects, you establish the criticality of the failure effect. Okay, the criticality is determined by the risk priority number. Once you do that, you create an action plan and you revise the design. Okay, once you have revised the design, you go again into the design review, and this cycle is continuously this is kind of a closed loop. Okay, there is no end. As I told before, that design is an open-ended argument. It's an open argument, and it's continuous improvement. There is no such thing as a perfect design. A design can be improved any number of times. Okay, now how is DFMEA implemented? These are the steps for the implementation of DFMEA. Now let's talk about the practical aspect of DFME. Let's take a look at how is it implemented in the industries. First is you are seeing on your screen. You must be seeing on your screen over here. Just a minute, excuse me. Yeah, you must be seeing on your screen here, this one, the table that you are seeing here, this one, the table that is available right now here. This table is actually the table of DFMEA implementation. If you see here, we are having the product or the process, the failure mode. I'm sorry, there is typo error. It is the failure mode, MODE. Then we are having here the failure effect. Here we are having the scale of severity. Here we are having the failure cause. On the basis of this cause, how many times can this cause occur? And then here we are having the controls for identification of the failure. Okay, controls for identification of the failure mode. Okay, for example, when I'm again coming back to the water leaking control, like how do you detect the water leaking? It is visual. So the detectability is very easy. So you would be assigning a very small number. We will be taking a look at the scale as well after some time. And then we talk about the risk priority number. Risk priority number is the multiplication of severity, occurrence, and detectability. This value is called as the risk priority number. And then comes the action plan. Action plan is how to revise the design in order to get a product without potential failures. Okay. Now getting back to the excuse me, just a minute, I'll just change the pointer. Okay, now it's fine. Okay, continuing, now let us take a look at an example of DFME. Now we will take a look at a practical example of DFME with an example of all-terrain bicycle brake system. Okay, what we will be taking an example of bicycle brake system. Now we are going to create a table. Okay, and we have identified that the product or process is going to be our brake system. Now what is the function of the brake system? The function of the brake system is to provide correct level of friction between brake pads and wheel rims to safely stop a bicycle at the required distance under all operating conditions. Okay, so the bicycle is supposed to stop, okay, with the help of friction between the brake pad and the wheel rim in any situation, under all operating circumstances. It can be like, and because it is an all-terrain bicycle, it should be able to stop this. It should be able to stop on the roads, on the mountains, on the ice, on Mars or Pluto or wherever it is supposed to stop. That's it. So this is the function that we are going to concentrate on. Now, what are the possible failure modes in this one? Failure mode is going to be that when I'm pushing the brake, it is not stopping in heavy rains. Insufficient friction delivered during heavy rains. My bike is not stopping in heavy rains. My bicycle is not stopping when it is raining a lot. What is going to be the effect of this one? What is going to be the effect of this problem, of this mode? The bicycle doesn't slow down, resulting in an accident. This is going to be the effect of this failure mode. Now we need to enter the severity. Now we need to enter the value, the value for the severity. Now how do we identify the severity? Severity, here we are having the severity scales. It's like so these documents I would be sending you guys by email, so you don't have to worry about that if you are not able to see this one properly. In this one we are going to go with the rating of 10 because this failure mode may endanger machine or operator hazardous without a warning. Like when I'm going to fall down from the bike, my bike is not going to tell me from before that okay, the brake is not working because it is raining and you're going to fall down. It is not going to give me any warning. So it is going to endanger the operator and it is hazardous without warning. So we would be going with a rating of 10. Okay, but if there was some kind of a system which would give us warning, then it would be a rating of 9. So here we are going to give the severity 10. Okay. Now, what is the failure cause? The failure cause can be cable is stuck due to inadequate lubrication. Okay, the lubrication was not good, because of which the cable was stuck. Then the external foreign elements came inside the bicycle. For example, I went to a mountain, okay, for off-riding. After my off-riding, what happened was there were some amount of dust particles, there were some stones which went inside the cable. So because of these foreign elements, the cable got stuck, because of which the brake was not working. The third possibility would be that the cable breaks and the cable completely broke. Okay, now we have identified three causes of the failure for the same mode. Now all these three problems that we are having, all these three causes that we have identified, they are talking about the insufficient friction due to heavy rains. Okay, during heavy rains, this is our main motto that we are trying to solve, and we have identified three causes. So now we need to give a scale for occurrence. How do we how do we provide the number for the occurrence? We provide through the table of occurrence. How is it? The failure is almost inevitable. The important thing is to see here. Is there going to be, out of 2 parts produced, 1 part would be failing? Out of 3 parts produced, 1 part would be failing? Out of 2000 parts produced, 1 part would be failing? So like this, we are having a chart. So we are just going to assume this one. We are going to take an assumption that the cable is stuck due to inadequate lubrication. We are going to assign it the occurrence level of 6. Now what is occurrence level of 6? It is 1 in 80 times this problem is going to happen. So we are giving it an occurrence of 6. External foreign elements getting stuck. This is very rare, because it is very rare in 150,000. Okay, 150,000 means 1.5 lakh cases. In 1.5 lakh cases, one case will happen in which some stone or something will enter inside our cable system. Okay, and then the cable breaks. Cable breaks is also quite unoften. This is also once in 15,000 cases. In 15,000 cases, one time will happen that the cable will break. So now we are having the occurrences. We have provided the rating of the occurrences as well. Now here we are giving these values randomly. Okay, but having said that, when you work in an industry, you cannot provide any data random. Every single data needs to be reasoned. So this is how, but here, because we are just discussing about an example, I'm giving here the occurrences randomly. Now we are going to talk about the existing controls that we have for identification of these causes. If the cable is stuck due to inadequate lubrication, inadequate lubrication can be because of lack of oil. So we have oil level indicator. It can be that that lubrication oil is there, but the lubrication is not proper, like it is not passing properly because there is some kind of a durability issue. So for that we have durability tests that we can do beforehand. And then for external foreign elements getting stuck, there is no control, that nobody can check. That can be only checked when you are getting it for servicing, but when you go for the servicing, it is late because the accident can happen beforehand as well. And if the cable breaks, for this we have the test of durability for the cable as well. Now we need to provide the detection rate. We need to give the scale of detection. Now how do we give the scale of detection? Again, we have this table. Okay, it's like if you are having 1 and 2, it's like the process automatically detects the failure. If you are having 3 and 4, it means that controls have a good chance of detecting the existence of failure. 7, 5, 6 and 7 is that controls may detect the existence of failure. Like this, it is there. Now we are again going to provide the detectabilities like this. We are going to provide 4 for the oil level indicator because it is comparatively easier. Durability test, we are going to give 6. For external foreign elements, we don't have any test, so we are going to give 10. For durability test, we are going to provide 5. Okay, based on this, we calculated the risk priority numbers. Okay, now with risk priority numbers, what has happened is that with risk priority numbers, we are able to identify which area we need to focus on. The first thing that we need to focus on is this one, the risk priority number with 360, because here the cable is getting stuck and the durability test. Now this is something where we need to create an action plan. Now we have identified the problem. Now for this problem, okay, for this symptom, okay, the problem exists somewhere here. Okay, so now with the help of this risk priority number, we are able to shortlist the solution. Now the shortlisted solution is that we need to have a better durability test. If we are able to improve the durability test, then then our objective would be to reduce the risk priority number. And once we reduce the risk priority number based on the plan, we would be revisiting and we would be updating this durability test identification. As soon as you update this one, the value of this will fall, and automatically the value of risk priority number will also fall. When the value of risk priority number falls, then the second problem would be identified. Okay, then maybe this one would be the higher value. If this goes to 200, then you need to focus on the oil level indicator. So this is how you identify the problems. Now from this table, what we have seen is we have identified the symptom. Okay, the failure mode is actually the symptom. Then we have identified the problems. The problems is that the cable is getting stuck due to inadequate lubrication. External foreign element is getting stuck. Cable is breaking. Now these things are the problems. These are the problems in the existing product. And this is how you have shortlisted the problem. If you focus till now, we did not talk about solution at all. We did not find the solution. After this, you go to find the solution. But for finding the solution, you have shortlisted the problem first, because now you know what is the problem. From here on, finding the solution is very easy. Even the experienced people don't know how to find a problem. And this is the biggest difference between a person who knows how to design and a designer. I speak with a lot of students every single day, and they always say to me, yeah, I know designing, like I have trained in in Creo and all. And then I ask them a question, you know how to design, or you are a designer? You want to become a designer, or you want to be a person who knows how to design? Because knowing a design software, okay, or reading a design book, that doesn't make you a designer. Identification of the problem, because every single designer, like Sumant explained, he works with a lot of companies. He has worked on the government projects for the correct. He has worked on the projects for the Karnataka government as well. And at the end of the day, in all the designing projects that he does, the final goal that he has to accomplish is solving a problem. That's what it is. Now, every single thing, every single situation, every single product, every single tool is created for the identification of the problem. Once the problem is identified, then you go into why it's important to remove the problem. For example, if you have been following our sessions for the past 3 weeks or 4 weeks, you must have observed that every single session that we take, it is the format of the session is like this. First, we talk about what the problem is. Okay, as we spoke even in this session, what the problem was. Then we spoke about why is it important to remove this problem. Okay, and then we spoke about how can we solve the problem. Right, and we are not talking about the solution. So this is how we are identifying the problem, we are shortlisting the problem, and then going for possible solutions for the problem. Okay, even in this masterclass session that we are taking, even the masterclass Infinity programs that we have, even the courses that we have from our company, this is our goal. Like, we identified the problems. For example, like I would like to discuss these things with you, the harsh realities. Okay, the harsh realities is something which we found on the media, and we identified these as the problems on basis of which the Masterclass Infinity was designed. The first harsh reality is that the Aspiring Minds. Aspiring Minds is a company. Okay, it is a company which conducts studies. So according to Aspiring Minds, Aspiring Minds conducted an employability focus study based on 1.5 lakh engineering students, and they found out that only 7% engineering graduates are employable. Only 7% engineering graduates are employable. According to the CEO of Tech Mahindra, Mr. CP Gurnani, 94% of engineering graduates are not fit for hiring. And this I am not saying, these guys are saying. And if you don't believe me, you can go and fact check it. You can go to the internet and you just type 94% of engineering graduates are not fit for hiring, and you would be seeing a complete article on that. Okay. And according to Forbes, only 52% of freshers are retained by the companies after their initial contract. Every single year, there are around 15 lakh engineers, okay, who finish their graduation in India. Out of 15 lakh students, around 8 lakh students are like only 8 lakh students are retained. Remaining 7 lakh students are fired after their 6 months of contract. What is the reason? The reason is what we discussed before. Students, the graduates think that having an understanding, like if you learn a software, the more certificates that you have, that is sufficient for you to get a job. Yes, you are right. It is sufficient for you to get a job, but what about the survival? Entering inside a company is very easy, but sustaining a job inside a company is very, very difficult. If you don't believe that, you can ask your seniors who have passed out and who are working right now in the companies. And even if you don't ask them, here I'm showing you the data from from the renowned areas of of the internet and of the world. So these are the harsh realities which we identified. We identified these problems, and then the Masterclass Infinity session was created on top of this one. So basically, what is Masterclass Infinity? Masterclass Infinity is a program. It is a 24-week live online extensive program. We train, we provide internship, and we provide mentoring for 6 months to the students. And these mentorships and these trainings are provided by the industry by the industry professionals. Okay, and we provide this program in the area of mechanical CAD, in mechanical CAE, which is ANSYS, which is for the analysis, for data analytics, and also for the UI technologies. So these are the 4 areas which we are focusing right now. In the coming months, we are also going to start for the PCB manufacturing and also for the web development. So these are 2 more areas on which we are focusing right now. Now, how does this whole Masterclass Infinity thing works? Well, in Masterclass Infinity is divided in 3 parts. The first, as I told, is internship, the training, internship, and the mentoring. In training, what we do is we explain you how to create models and perform analysis. Okay, basically, how do you reason? Okay, how do you use your theoretical and software skills, and how can you take it to an advancement? In step 2, we provide you internship. For 1 month, you would be ragged. Okay, for 1 month, you are completely ragged in the companies. Okay, where you translate your modeling and analysis know-how into knowledge. Now you are going to translate your knowledge, your know-how from training, and you are going to convert it into your knowledge. Okay, in the industry. Okay, by understanding the execution of the process. Okay, and here you are going to interact with the industry experts to understand their way of thinking, which is very, very important. And then in step 3, we would be providing you mentoring. Now, what is mentoring? In mentoring, we ask you to develop your own product based on your experience from training and internship. And we will be providing you live projects from the companies where you did internship as well. So you are going to put yourself in the shoes of the project managers of that company. You're going to interact with the business accelerators. You are going to create your own engineering profile with this one. Okay, you are going to have an experience of the customer driven scenario to get an insight of the management product. This is how we train, we provide internship, and we provide mentorship. This is how we create students. Once you go through this process, after the end of 6 months, you get an experience certificate of 6 months. We do not provide you training certificate. We provide 6 months of 6 months of experience certificate. You would be having 3 live projects in your hand to put in your CV. Okay, we will help you. We will teach you how to create an online portfolio. Okay, I will show you what is a portfolio in a couple of minutes. Okay, you would be learning how to create an engineer's portfolio. Okay, and you would be interacting with our business accelerators as well. So you would be getting a complete know-how, a complete understanding of how the market works, how the industry works, and how the work is being done. So this is our session from our side. I thank you for the patience. If you have any questions, you can email us to these email addresses.